It is hard to ignore some of the troubling reports seen daily that span all along the West Coast. How a place with 58,000 homeless people can continue to function. The investigation revealing trash littered across every block says the Golden State has the worst quality of life in the nation.
Cast out the devils, he heals the sick, and he raises the dead.
The greatest opportunities in human history are here upon us. That's the good news we've got tonight.
Psalm 89. O Yahweh, God of hosts, who is mighty as you are, O Yahweh, with your faithfulness all around you.
Conference is about activating your faith, divine reversal, and a divine reversal in a blessing way.
Hi everybody, it's Mike from Here the Watchmen, and I'm coming at you today on Monday. It is the 29th of July, and what that means is just around the corner, beginning Friday in Branson, Missouri, is the SKYWATCH Defender Conference. You don't want to miss it, completely sold out, but you can still get it live streamed to you. Just go to skywatchtv.com and you can find it there where you can sign up for the live streaming and get it for 90 days so you can go back and view it. And as a bonus, if you sign up and you email me, Mike Kerr 777 at gmail.com, I'll give you our past Dallas conference for Hear the Watchmen or a year ago in Long Island, New York, absolutely free of charge, so you can enjoy those too. So get busy, get out there, make something happen. Josh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Mike, glad to be back.
You know, it's just, I'm so excited about seeing you and Christina and all the folks from SKYWATCH TV there this weekend. It's just going to be a phenomenal conference. Some great people. I've been interviewing Lieutenant Colonel McGinnis yesterday and some other people. It's just really going to be a great informational session. Can you share with us, Josh, a little bit about what you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, definitely. So for people who might follow me already, then they know that I have a project coming out later on this year. It's a new book that I've written with Donna Howell and Allie Anderson Henson at SKYWATCH, and it's called Afterlife. I actually just got the rough draft version of the cover, and it looks phenomenal. And so I'm really excited for that. But that'll be out. The book itself will be out later this year. It won't be out in time for the conference, but I'm going to be speaking on some of the stuff that I wrote in the book at the conference. So I've been interested in near-death experiences for a long time. My wife had one. I've never had one, but my wife has had one. I've known quite a few people that have. But the research into near-death experiences today usually goes in one of two directions. It's rare to find like good, solid Christian research into near-death experiences. Usually you get either like a more medical kind of definition, which says that it's kind of a trick of the brain, it's releasing of chemicals, it's the brain shutting down, and it's basically not real. It's a hallucination that occurs right before brain death. So there's that, or you get really new agey kind of interpretations that goes way off the rails, all into this universal salvation kind of stuff where everybody is saved, everybody gets a good NDE, everybody gets to go to heaven. And that's simply not true. Even in the NDE research itself, it's not true. There are people who have had very hellish near-death experiences, and we even interview somebody in the book really extensively who had one. He had a near-death experience as an atheist, saw hell, and Jesus allowed him to come back. I mean, it was a near. That's the thing that people. I'm going to backtrack a little bit to make sure that people understand near death is not death. So there are some people, some Christians, who are uncomfortable by the whole topic of near-death experiences because they feel like it's people have died and they're escaping the judgment of Jesus somehow. That's not what's happening here at all. So it's near death. I use the example in the book that it's sort of like going up to the edge of a cliff and looking over, but not jumping off. So you can look over and you can kind of get a sense of what it's like, but you're not jumping off. Once you jump off, it's done. You're sealed. You know, your fate is sealed. So near death is not a situation where your fate is sealed. I don't know the exact purpose behind it. You know, why God allows these things to happen sometimes. But so going back to the individual who had a near death experience and saw hell, he didn't escape hell and then come back. That's not what happened. So some Christians have tried to say that that's what occurs, and they're uncomfortable because of that. That's not what's happening. Jesus allowed this individual for his own reasons, for Jesus' own reasons. I don't know why he allows some people to see this and not others, but he allowed this person who was an atheist to have this experience and basically come back. And when he realized that, you know, he was alive again, or that he was, you know, back in his body or whatever, he became a Christian. Like at that moment, he gave his life to Christ, and he's been talking about this ever since. So it's really interesting the transformation that some of these experiences have on people. Now, but again, not everybody becomes a Christian. Some people have an experience like this. They don't know how to interpret it, and they get really into New Age or something like that. So there's definitely something going on here, and I addressed the whole first part of the book to get into near-death experiences from a Christian perspective, and not just passing it off saying, well, because this doesn't fit into my idea of what the Bible says, it must mean that NDEs aren't real. I totally believe they're real, but I believe that we have to be really careful how we interpret them. We have to take it case by case. We have to see how the near-death experiencer, him or herself, is describing their experience, because sometimes they'll put their own interpretations on their own description. So we have to watch out for that too. You know, if somebody is already a New Ager and they have a near-death experience that to them is pleasant, then they're going to be rooted even further in the New Age when they come out of it. And again, why does God allow that to happen? There's a lot of things I put in the book that would probably take too long to get into for this interview, but I'm going to be talking about that at the conference. There's also this very strange aspect of near-death experiences that haven't really been reported on, and I don't think any Christian researcher has reported on this. I've never heard it. Some more either secular or some more New Age have talked a little bit about it, but I think that people don't know what to do with this, so they don't. But luckily, I do. Because this goes right down my alley. People are having near-death experiences where they experience what's called extra-dimensional perception. It's a big fancy word. All it means is that with some people, not everybody, when some people have a near-death experience, they're outside of their body, and all of a sudden they can see from. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you're looking at an object, you know, we see the front of the object. They can see all sides of the object, top, bottom, sometimes even inside and outside, all at the same time. The best way to describe it is how we look at a two-dimensional object. So, you know, I could draw a square, and then I can look at that square, and I can see the inside, the outside of it. I can see all four sides of the square. I can see the whole thing. If I was a two-dimensional entity, like if I was another square looking at the square, I would only be able to see one or at most two sides at the same time. I would have to go around the thing to actually see it. I would have to cut it open to see the inside of it. And that's more how our relationship to three-dimensional objects are. You know, I can look at this coffee mug here. I can look at the front of it, but if I want to see all sides, I have to turn it around. I have to tip it and look inside. You know, I have to move it around to see all sides. There are people that are having near-death experiences that could look at that mug and see it the way that we would see a square. It's like they're seeing it from a fourth spatial dimension. So they're able to actually see the inside, outside, top, bottom. And these aren't quantum physicists. These are people that have no background in extra dimensions, and they wouldn't know how to make something like that up. You know, you look at usually when TVs or movies, when they deal with extra dimensions, they treat it as if an extra dimension is like another place, like some other universe or something. And that's not right. That's not what it is. Extra dimensions are right here with us right now. We just can't see them. So there's nothing in these people's brains that would just make that up. They're not lying. I don't believe they're lying. I don't think that they would be capable of getting it that accurate, because you gotta, for me to get my head around what an extra dimension would be like, or what we would look like to somebody to like an extra dimensional entity. That took a few years of reading a lot of quantum physics stuff that I just don't think the average person does, and it's just because it's a very specific point of interest that not everybody has. But definitely these people, there was this big study done, and they tested, they questioned 70 near-death experiencers, and there were 38 of those 70 that claimed to have this type, and they didn't know how to explain it, but this type of just extra perception. And they didn't really have the words for it because they don't know things like extra dimensions and quantum physics, and they don't know that. But 38 out of the 70 that they tested had these types of really weird extra dimensional perception type of experiences. So it's really not reported on that much, and I think it's because a lot of times people don't really know how to explain it. But it happens more often than we would think. So I have a whole section in the book about that. I talk in the book about how I believe that, we're made of body, soul, and spirit. I believe our soul is actually an extra dimensional body, a spiritual body. I believe extra dimensional and spiritual are the same thing. We tend to think of spiritual reality as just kind of this ghostly world, and I don't think it's that at all. I think it's actually more solid, more real than our world, just like our world would be more real to a two-dimensional square. So I'm going to be talking about all that. Plus, there's this really weird verse in Ephesians 2, verses 5 and 6, that talks about how when we were saved, we were raised together to be seated with Jesus in heaven. But it's talking about a past tense thing that's happening. So not only is it extra dimensional space, it's extra dimensional time. So I'm going to get into all of this and more at the conference, but all of this was like, I want to be on the cutting edge of near-death experience research. I want to talk about the stuff that nobody is talking about, and if they are talking about it, they're certainly not talking about it from a Christian perspective. We, as Christians, because we believe in heaven and hell and God, and we believe in all this stuff, we should be on the forefront of this research, but we're not. The New Agers are. So I say, let's take our territory back. So that's what I'm going to try to do.
Amen to that. Amen to that. I think that's a wonderful goal. And you are obviously not a New Ager,
right?
But you dabbled in the New Age before you were saved. Is that correct?
Yep. Years ago, I have come out of the New Age. So years ago, I was born and raised a Christian, and then New Age stuff deceived me for a lot of years, and I actually thought that New Age was an extension of my Christianity, and I was flat out wrong on that. Long story short, I ended up inadvertently inviting a bunch of demons into my house and not knowing what I was doing. And, it was through astral projection and stuff like that. It nearly ruined my life over it. But through that experience, I woke up to the realization that, what Christianity, God, what the Bible says about Jesus has been true all along. And I saw the real power in that and the fake kind of power that New Age has. There is stuff in New Age that's real. I believe that people can in some way, and I don't know how it works. I know we shouldn't do it, but I do believe that people can leave their bodies and astral project. Shouldn't do it because every time you do that, you're basically punching a hole through the veil and allowing anything that wants to come through in. But it's possible to do that. Doesn't mean that we should be doing it because the Bible just directly forbids any of that kind of stuff. It calls it witchcraft and sorcery and stuff like that. But there's a reason, and it's because the spiritual world is real and we are not equipped to deal with it correctly. So, and I realize that firsthand. There are a lot of consequences. The Bible isn't just a bunch of rules to ruin everybody's fun. It's protection. It's the same as teaching your kid don't touch a hot stove because you're going to get burned if you do. You're not trying to ruin your kid's fun. You're trying to keep them safe. That's what God's trying to do with us. He's trying to keep us safe. So, so I realized that the real power, the real truth, is in Jesus Christ, and I gave my life to Him. And got rid of all the New Age stuff, got out of New Age, and a few years after that, that's when I got really heavy into ministry work. I wrote a book with Stephen Bancars, which he and I will be doing a presentation for here, the Watchmen in California this year, all about coming out of New Age and stuff like that. So now I'm sensitive to the fact of what is New Age and what isn't, and there's a lot of New Agey things that come through in near-death experience interpretations. I'm not saying that the experience itself is New Age, but the way that people will sometimes interpret it. So I want to take those same experiences that I do believe are true. And again, you got to take it case by case basis. There are, of course, some suspicious cases where you got to say, well, I don't know. Let's put this on the shelf for now because there's something weird in there that might not be right. But you got to take it case by case. But I want to give a proper Christian interpretation of these things from a theological standpoint, not from a mainstream Christian standpoint, where a lot of Christian leaders would just say, well, I don't think any of that's real. This person said, this famous person said he had an NDE and then it turned out to be fake. Books have been written on that and they turn out to be fake. So I just don't think any of it's real. I think that's too simplistic because there are people who are having real experiences. It transforms their lives. I mean, some people become Christians over this stuff. But again, just some people become Christians, but some people become New Agers over it too. So we got to look at what's going on. It's not a problem with the experience; it's a problem with the interpretation. So that's what I'm really trying to look at.
Wow, fascinating stuff. Now, here's going to be a curveball question for you.
Sure.
Where do you find people that you can interview and research on this matter? It's not exactly like you can put out an ad on Craigslist. I mean, how did you find these people?
Well, it's that was kind of a skill I had to learn, and when I learned to become a researcher, an author, and everything. Basically, kind of what I do. It helps when you get a little bit more well known, because if you ask somebody for an interview, they're going to check you out and they're going to see if it's worth their time. So if you already have an audience and you already have books out and you already have a channel or something like that, then that can get you a lot of ground. But when I was first starting out, I just had to send out emails to anybody I could, and I would send out hundreds of emails, and maybe I would only get one or two back. But then there were times where I would get somebody that was like really well known. Like I did, you remember that sci-fi series V back in the 90s that was like really popular? I actually, the guy who wrote that, his name is Ken Johnson, not Dr. Ken Johnson, who's usually on Prophecy Watchers and things like that. Kenneth Johnson, he's a film director. He's not a Christian as far as I know, but I wrote a book called Quantum Creation years and years ago. I self-published it, and I reached out to him because part of what I was dealing with was aliens in Hollywood, and that series had been redone a couple of times, and there was plans for a future movie, and it was like a big deal. So I reached out to him, and I just happened to get lucky, and he wrote back and said he'd love to do an interview. So that having that interview helped, because now in future interviews, if I wanted from somebody else, I was able to say, just so you kind of know where I'm coming from and my credibility, I did interview, Kenneth Johnson, director of V. So basically, once you kind of get your foot in the door, and it can take a little while, but once you get your foot in the door, then you can use those as examples to get other interviews. And I still do that today. I've interviewed Kevin Sorbo and Michael Knowles and Andrew Clavin from Daily Wire, and I've interviewed some more higher profile people, the singer of Dishwalla from that 90s band, those give me things that now if I want to get somebody that's a little bit more difficult to get, or if I have to deal with somebody's agent or somebody, I can use those as examples to show, I'm not crazy. I'm a good interviewer. It's not going to harm this person's image if he or she is interviewed by me. So that helps a lot. It's basically once you get your first, kind of bigger name, you can gain a lot of ground with that.
Wow, fascinating stuff. Now the name of the book again is?
It is Afterlife, and so really simple, easy to remember. Afterlife. It's Donna Howell, Josh Peck, and Allie Anderson Henson.
And when will this be available?
Later this year, hopefully by October, November, somewhere around there. That's what we're shooting for. But it should be out, later this year. But I don't want to get people's hopes up too much, just in case something happens with the printer. You never know. Sure. But we're shooting for somewhere between like October, November. We're going to have some SKYWATCH TV programs on it airing within the next couple of months, so people can keep up on that at skywatchtv.com. And then, of course, the store is skywatchtvstore.com. Once it's available, that's where people will be able to order it. So yeah, just keep your eyes on Skywatch, and we'll have some programs on Afterlife out to you. And I think people are really gonna enjoy it.
Well, I think they are too. So, hey, listen, I know you're really busy getting ready for what's going to kick off on Friday. Thank you for taking time out of your day today to talk to us a little bit about this. Fascinating stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me on again. It's always good talking to you.
We'll see you guys on Thursday, I guess it is, in Branson, Missouri. And then we'll see everybody else that's coming on Friday. Don't forget, get out there and live stream this conference. You really can participate in this, and you will be enriched by what you hear at this conference. So listen, that's going to wrap it up for today's edition of the Watchman's Report. Like we always say on our channel, there's nothing you can't do with Jesus in your heart, except nothing at all. Get out there, get busy, activate your faith, make a difference. We'll see you next time here on the Watchman's Report.